Today, on Rust to Resurrection, we're talking about the restoration of this 1930 Browning Auto5. If you've been following my Instagram page, then you've been watching this restoration from the beginning. I'll put a link down in the description if you want to follow more of my work. Now, this restoration is a special one, as this gun is a family heirloom. It has been a part of one family since it was new in 1930. The gun was well used when I got it, as it should be, and the owner asked me if I could give new life to the gun for new generations of family. You need to know that I'm a sucker for these kind of restorations, as they give real meaning to the work. So over the next several minutes, I want to walk you through the restoration process, and then at the end reveal the gun to you through video and photos. So please stick around to the end for the reveal. The night before I filmed this, I was talking to a friend of mine, another YouTube creator, about some ideas I had for the video, and we hashed a couple possibilities. One of the thoughts were to add something about restoration how-tos. That would be a lot for any one video, but one thing I wanted to share and think is important to any restoration is knowing stuff. To do any kind of respected work, study and research is critical. Questions to ask are, how did builders and manufacturers do stuff back in the day? What were the materials? What was the state of the art at the time? And so many other questions as well. Here's just a small sample of the books and resources in my library. Another thing that I believe in is networking. You can know stuff, but you may never know everything. So over the years, I've met many terrific, well-studied folks who I can ask questions and ask for help. And this has been true for all of my loves, cars, guitars, or guns. During this restoration, I was struggling trying to understand and remove the finish that was added by one of the family members sometime in the gun's history. So in this photo, I'm working with a good friend and finish restoration expert, Mark Adams. Mark was able to help analyze the different layers of finish and give me a mild stripper that helped to remove everything without damage to the wood. You need to meet and know people, and then to be humble. My best piece of advice is to do no harm, and to respect deeply whatever it is you're restoring. Before doing any work, before dismantling the gun, I'm looking it all over carefully, and I'm taking lots of photos and lots of notes. This record of what is critical for documenting the history of the gun, and this gun, it does have history. And the photos are also extremely helpful when it comes to putting it all back together again. Interestingly, Browning changed the operating mechanism for the Auto5 over the years, and this early gun has several features that are different from those produced into the 1960s. A good example of one of the differences is the safety. Newer guns have a safety on the side of the trigger guard, while this gun has a sliding safety at the front of the trigger guard. Once you use this old style safety, it becomes pretty clear why Browning changed it. It's difficult to use. When I take one of these old guns apart, I try to compartmentalize each of the components by where they go into the gun and by what they do. This not only helps in the reassembly, but more, it helps me to visualize each part as it's polished and blued. For example, this way I know which pin or screw end is exposed to the outside or the show side of the gun. Those ends, they need to be polished and blued. I then tape them as a unit and carefully store them until needed. So, do you start with the wood, or do you start with the steel? Well, it depends. It depends on what the customer is asking for, and it depends on what your experience in the gun is telling you. Remember my number one rule, to do no harm? Well, if we could have just freshened the finish on the gun stock, there would have been little or no need to get down into the wood itself. But in the case of this gun, the wood was so damaged and worn, it was necessary to strip all the finish, pull out 80 years of hard use by steaming dents and repairing breaks, lightly sanding, and all while trying to remove as little original wood as possible. And then we needed to add back the new finish when we were done. This meant we needed to match file the metal to the wood, so in this case the metal came second. We had to draw file out the dents and rust pitting, again doing no harm. We also had to be aware of all the roll marking and work to preserve all of that in its original state. Now that was fun. With the metal now in the white, we could go back and do all of our final polish, getting the major components ready for gluing. I love rust blue. Rust blue is traditional and has its roots in old gun manufacturing history. It is this contradiction of experiences and expectations, where you add the chemical onto the metal with a cotton ball after it's preheated. This turns the metal rusty. Then you drop it into boiling water. Yup, metal into water. And it turns blue. Now, rust bluing is somewhat labor intensive because there's this added step called carding, where you use a fine wire mesh or steel wool to bring out the luster. Unlike more modern bluing techniques, rust blue leaves a stunning blue-black finish that looks to be miles deep. This rust bluing, it is the work of an artist. The last bit of repairs and restoration are all the small parts. Every button and lever needs something. All the screws get their slots filed and pointed. Then everything is polished and glued. The butt plate, years of dings caused by the gun being banged on the ground or a rock or a hard floor, is repaired. Then it's painted and clear coated. The last bit, final assembly. Months of work has led to this. Carefully, we add the parts back, not wanting to damage or scratch them. Then the wood. The wood is the end. The wood is what everyone sees. The wood is what gives this mastery life and emotion. We began this restoration 30 months or 22 man-hours ago. Putting this in perspective, a modern manufacturer can put a new gun in the box roughly every 120 seconds. Restorations, they are intense, emotional, and hard work. Nothing gets done in just a few seconds. Here is the reveal. I hope you enjoyed this video, so please leave comments if you'd like to see more of this kind of content. Also, I'm putting a link in the description to my family's business, Rody's Gun Shop. Rody's is where I get most of my gun restoration work from. If you click the link, you can see and read some of the shop's history. I'm also including a link to my Instagram account where you can follow some of my work in real time. So you know the deal. Like the video, subscribe, ring the bell, and I'll see you in the next one.